I never thought silence could have an echo, but it does, and it follows me everywhere, a haunting reminder that no matter how far you run from the past, it waits for you in shadows you didn't know you carried. My name is Elena Cross, and I swore the last time I bled into these pages that my confession was complete, that my war was finished, that I could finally breathe in air that didn't taste like ashes. But tonight, as I write this in a motel room where the walls are so thin I can hear strangers whispering through them, I realize the silence never ended, it only changed shape. My brother's death, my revenge, the ruin I delivered to the man who thought he could bury truth, it should have been enough, but ghosts don't measure in victories. They measure in hunger, and hunger never sleeps. I see him sometimes, my brother, in glass reflections on rainy nights, or in the corner of my vision when the city is quiet, and I swear I hear him asking, "What now, Elena?" I thought I had no answer, until last week, when I discovered the past isn't finished with me. I was walking home late from work, the kind of night where the city feels like a stage set, lights flickering, actors moving, but the script forgotten, and I found an envelope taped to my door. No address, no handwriting, just my name, printed in bold letters like a headline. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 6 words, "You didn't finish what you started." At first, I thought it was a cruel joke, maybe from someone who had followed my story in whispers, someone who thought revenge could be mocked like gossip. But then, the next day, another envelope came, this time with a photograph, a girl I didn't recognize, tied to a chair in a dimly lit room, her eyes wide with terror. No note, no explanation, just her face staring at me like an accusation. And something inside me shifted, because I knew this wasn't random. Whoever sent this knew me, knew what I'd done, and wanted to remind me that my story wasn't over. I spent the following days in a haze of paranoia, watching every shadow, memorizing every face in the crowd, waiting for the next envelope. It came on the 4th day, heavier this time. Inside was an old newspaper clipping, yellowed with age, about a missing girl from 20 years ago. A case I vaguely remembered hearing as a child, one that was never solved. Scrawled in ink across the headline were the words, "He's still out there. Find him." I read that clipping over and over, tracing the lines of the girl's smiling face, the way her eyes seemed too alive to belong to a photograph. Something about it gnawed at me, pulled me deeper, until I realized what this was. Someone was baiting me, daring me to take up the role again, to become not just Elena Cross, survivor, but Elena Cross, executioner. And as much as I wanted to resist, as much as I wanted to close my door and lock the world out, I couldn't. Because what if it was true? What if the man I destroyed wasn't the only monster hiding in plain sight? The city looks different when you're hunting, sharper, louder, like every corner hides a secret. I started digging, old archives, forgotten police reports, whispers from retired detectives who drank too much to guard their tongues. Patterns emerged. Girls gone missing, years apart, never the same place, never the same method, but always the same silence after. And then, buried in the records, a name surfaced, one I hadn't spoken in years, Marcus Hale. He was a corporate partner of the man I destroyed, his shadow in meetings, his echo in business, and suddenly I realized, what if they hadn't been partners only in profit? What if their crimes stretched further than I had imagined? Marcus Hale was still alive, still thriving, still smiling in glossy magazines, his hand on the shoulder of mayors and judges. The kind of man no one questions, because questioning men like him comes with consequences. I followed him, of course. That's what I do best. Days blurred into nights, nights into weeks, as I mapped his world. He was meticulous, almost boring, leaving his office at the same time every evening, eating at the same restaurants, even jogging the same route each Saturday morning. But beneath the routine, I sensed calculation, the way predators circle until prey wanders too far from safety. The more I watched, the more I felt it, the same darkness I'd seen years ago, the same arrogance, the same untouchable shield of wealth and power. And then, one night, I saw him break routine. He left his office late, much later than usual, and drove across the city to a warehouse district long abandoned by anyone with a future. I followed, heart pounding, headlights off, and what I saw through the cracked windows of that warehouse will never leave me. A girl, bound and trembling. Men laughing. Marcus Hale standing among them like a conductor orchestrating fear. I wanted to storm inside, to scream, to end it right there. But rage is reckless, and reckless gets you killed. So I waited. I filmed. I gathered proof. And when I finally slipped back into the night, I knew my war had just reignited. But this time, it wasn't just about me or my brother. This time, it was about every ghost these men had created, every silence they had enforced, every echo they thought no one would ever hear. I returned to my apartment and laid out the evidence on my floor, just like before, but it felt different now, heavier, darker, like the city itself was watching. And then another envelope arrived, slid under my door while I slept. Inside was a single sentence: "You're not alone in this." At first, I thought it was a lie, a manipulation, but then the phone rang, and a voice I didn't recognize whispered, "We've been waiting for you, Elena." They called themselves the Forgotten, a group of survivors, families of victims, people who had been silenced for decades. They had records, files, names I had never seen, and they wanted me to be their blade, their voice, their vengeance. Part of me recoiled. I had never thought of myself as a leader, only as a shadow, but another part, the part that had grown too comfortable in silence, knew this was inevitable. Revenge is contagious, and now it was spreading. The plan was no longer mine alone. Together we mapped Marcus Hale's empire, every shell company, every politician in his pocket, every guard on his payroll. Weeks became months, and the city seemed to hum with tension, as if it knew what was coming. I moved like a ghost again, but this time I wasn't alone. I saw them everywhere, the forgotten, faces in crowds, whispers in alleys, nods in passing. A hidden army fueled not by justice but by vengeance. And yet, in the quiet of my room, I wondered, was I leading them, or was I being used? Did they choose me, or did Marcus Hale choose all of us, setting a trap I couldn't yet see? The night we struck, rain poured down like judgment. Hale arrived at his warehouse again, confident, smug, untouchable. But this time, the lights went out. Doors locked. Shadows moved where he didn't expect them. I watched from the rafters as his empire cracked, his men dragged into the dark by survivors who had waited too long for justice. Hale shouted, demanded, threatened, but no one listened. And when he finally saw me step into the light, recognition froze him, the way it had years ago with the first man. "Elena," he said, voice shaking for the first time. And I replied, "You don't get to say my name." What happened next will not be written, because some confessions belong only to silence. Now I sit here, hours later, my clothes damp, my hands still trembling, and I wonder if this story will ever truly end. Hale is gone, but shadows remain. The forgotten still whisper, still move, still hunger, and I fear I've opened a door I can't close. My brother's ghost is quieter tonight, but another has taken his place, the girl from the photograph, the girl who smiled from a clipping 2 decades old. She watches me now, in dreams, in reflections, and I wonder if I've become her echo. Perhaps that's the truth no one tells you about revenge. It doesn't end, it multiplies, until every silence has a voice, until every shadow learns to speak. My name is Elena Cross, and this is not my last confession. This is only the echo I couldn't bury.